Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Busy J, and we're back. Views from the city. It's been so long since I left you, so I'm gonna drop a dope pod so you can hear me and we can get it popping again. So I named this episode New York versus Everybody. And, during COVID, it's been tough times. I wish everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's staying safe and all that good stuff. But this is a sports podcast, and we're going to talk to why everybody hates New York. So, everybody's making fun of the Knicks. They get the 8th pick in the lottery. 6th worst record in the league, but they still drop 2 spots. And yet every media outlet, every fake news, holla at your boy Donald Trump, every fake news outlet, every blogger, every mom and pop sports fan from all over the world want to clown the Knicks as if the Knicks had the worst record and they didn't get the number 1 pick. You know why people hate New York so much? They hate New York because they are just jealous. They're jealous that the Garden is the mecca of basketball and all sports. They're jealous because the Knicks are the number 1 NBA team ranked in terms of profit and value on Forbes.com and the page of the Forbes magazine. People hate New York because New York makes headlines. People like to clown New York just like they used to clown the Cubs before they won a world championship. It's all about people just want to be envious of New York. Boston. Did you know that the old Boston Garden used to be called Boston Madison Square Garden? Talk about identity issues. They couldn't even name it the regular Boston Garden at first. They took a while and named it the Boston Madison Square Garden. If that's not identity crisis, I don't know what is. So between the Boston fans, and they'll remind you how many championships they got because, Bill Russell played in the era where he was the man and he played with a bunch of, white boys in the league. So that's why they got all those championships. That's a whole nother story. But I feel like, everybody wants to make fun of the Knicks because they're always losing. And James Dolan, he is a space cadet. James Dolan is a space cadet, and sometimes he could be aloof. But the man, his business, he's worth billions. The Garden generates millions. The Knicks, the Rangers, all his properties make him money. So all those people who want to fire Dolan, it's not going to happen. He makes too much money. You might, it's going to take someone like Steve Ballmer. If Steve Ballmer had wanted to buy the Knicks and he would have dropped Dolan $5 billion, he would have probably sold. But that ain't the case. I don't know if Jeff Bezos, a.k.a. Lex Luthor, might want to do that. But either way, we're stuck with him. And, we see what's going on with all the social injustice and all the social, everything's going on in society. And, a lot of sports, especially in upper management, they don't want to hire, people of color. I'll give James Dolan that. He's always hired people of color. From Isaiah Thomas to the current regime and Leon Rose, even Scott Perry back in the days. And he's always hired brothers and put them in position of power. So I'll give him that. But back to, clowning the Knicks. So everybody, this draft, no one really knows what to make of it. While the Timberwolves got the first pick, and before I get back on the Timberwolves, have you guys noticed a pattern for the last maybe 10, 15 years? How it's always, except for when LeBron left the Cavs, except for that little mutter where it was they won 3 number 1 picks, and I think maybe Washington when they got John Wall when he was the number 1 pick, and that one time where the Bulls got Rose. Other than that, it's been Western Conference teams, and I have a theory about that. The Western teams beat each other up, and the bottom of the West, if you're at the bottom of the West, you're going to have a terrible record. And for some reason, every time I turn around, it's a Western Conference team winning the lottery. Phoenix won not too long ago, and then after that, New Orleans, they leapfrogged everybody with the ping pong luck. They won last year, and now we got the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves won for the second time in less than 6 years. They just drafted Karl-Anthony Towns not too long ago, and now they got the number 1 pick. As for the Knicks were not looking for a big man this draft. They're going to keep developing Mitchell Robinson, and he's probably pretty much going to be their center of the future. And they wanted to build around him and RJ Barrett. So going after a big man was probably not in the Knicks' best interest. because they want a guard, they want to either get a point guard or a three-way player, a slasher, a nice all-around small forward. So they're probably, being an 8, it probably helps them out a little bit. They could probably trade up, make some moves, holler some people. Because let's say, back to Minnesota. Are they really going to take Edwards out of Georgia? Maybe. Do they want Lonzo? Do they want Ball? Probably. They probably don't want LaMelo because you just tied up money until D'Angelo Russell, and I don't know if a backcourt of Ball and Russell would work with the big cap. I don't know if that's going to work. But between the money you're spending on Russell and big cap, it'll be kind of foolish to put Ball in that situation. Let him go somewhere else. Maybe Chicago. Maybe this is where the Knicks could probably move up, because whatever the Warriors are doing, I personally don't think they're going to draft anybody. That pick is going to be hostage. They're going to trade that pick, get a veteran, because even though they had a horrible record this year, they're not the traditional rebuilding team. Everybody got hurt at the same time, and now those guards are coming back. They have championship pedigree. They've seen what happened with the league, and everybody's kind of like counting them out. So they want to come back with a vengeance. People forget Steph Curry's the best shooter in the NBA, but somehow that got overlooked because Dame has been jacking up half-court shots in the NBA bubble. Shout out to Dame. He's about to be done. His season is about to be done sometime this week because, they're about to be done. But back to the topic. So, all these moves right there. So, I would say maybe the Bulls. Charlotte, it's a bad run. Charlotte might be willing to trade with the Knicks, like to back down. Like, hey, listen, you give us the number 3 spot, and we'll give you 8. We'll give you maybe one of Dallas's picks, and they could build, they could build Russell capital right there, because I don't see them taking a point guard because they just spent all that money on Rozier. So it's like, we saw Jordan. He didn't want to pay. He didn't want to give his previous point guard, Kemba Walker, big bucks, but he was able to give Rozier a good contract, but that's a lot of money on the table. So will Charlotte be looking to get a point guard in this draft? Probably not. So again, the Knicks are in a decent position. If they don't get a Ball, they could get one of my personal favorite, Cole Anthony. He's a New York kid. His dad was a great point guard for the Knicks. It makes sense. He knows the city. He has that city game to him. Yes, he still needs development, but that's all these players still need kind of development. One thing that Luke is looking real good in this bubble, and he's looking real good in the playoffs, that's because he didn't go to college. That's because he played professional ball. He was playing with grown-ups when he was 18, playing in championship games in Europe. Kind of why I'm kind of high on LaMelo, because LaMelo wasn't playing college ball. He was honing his skills playing against grown men, regardless of what league it is and how you may look at the skill set. It's still a win-win, so maybe the Knicks will be all right. But yeah, it goes back to that. Everybody's hating the Knicks. Everybody's making fun of Brooklyn too. Brooklyn's gonna get some of this love too. Everybody's getting on the Nets because Kyrie could be aloof and Kevin Durant has burner accounts. But when they're healthy, they're gonna be a problem next year. And even though the Nets win the bubble without Dinwiddie, without DeAndre Jordan, Caris LeVert showed you what kind of player he is. A lot of those guys, the Nets culture is really good. They play hard. They've been playing hard for the last 2 years. And just plugging in 2 superstars should make a huge difference. I expect the Nets to be a top 3 seed in the East next year. They're going to have a problem because I don't know what you're going to do with LeVert and Dinwiddie. There'd be great role model, coming off the bench. It'd be great. You have to keep Joe Harris. He's a skilled shooter. There's a premium on shooters, so you definitely got to keep him. But the only way I would campaign for trading LeVert or Dinwiddie is if you're getting another veteran in return to help form a formidable big 3 to compete with everybody else in the East. But I definitely see the Nets making moves. But for some reason, people taking shots because, they came in this bubble. First of all, a lot of people didn't think that's going to win a game in the bubble. They won a few. They were competitive in the playoffs, even though they got swept by Toronto. But again, Toronto's the world champs. The Nets are shorthanded. Next year, be a total different story. But, because they're a New York team now, people just want to pile on. People want to pile on the New York sports fans, sports teams, because of the not so much recent success. The Giants are in that boat. The Yankees are the definition of love-hate. In New Yorkers love them. Everybody outside New York hates them. The Jets and the Mets are kind of in that sticky situation where, some New Yorkers hate them, some New Yorkers love them. Outside, no one really cares for them because they're the second team in their market. Out of all the second teams in the market, only the Nets have that opportunity to steal and become the number one if they do everything correctly. I mean, look at the Clippers. The Clippers are low-key trying to follow the Nets. Build a nice culture, get themselves their own arena, and get out of the Lakers' shadows. It's slowly happening, but it's going to take time. Unlike the Knicks, the difference between the Lakers and Knicks, the Lakers have championship capital. The Knicks haven't won a championship since '73. So if the Nets come here next year and win the championship, hell, if they win 2 championships, it could be real bumpy for New York sports fans because, Brooklyn's trendy and Brooklyn's hot. That's regardless. Brooklyn was hot before the Nets got here. They just came here, and it was like that extra shot. When you're drinking, you go to Miami, you're having a daiquiri, and you get an extra shot. That's what the Nets are to Brooklyn. Like I said, Brooklyn been hot. The Nets are low-key transplants, hipsters, we call them. So they come here, they could win a championship and possibly compete for 2. It could be problematic for the Knicks brand. Because, again, like I said, most New Yorkers... First of all, if you're not from New York, I'm from Brooklyn. People in Brooklyn and other boroughs, when we go to the Manhattan, we don't even call it Manhattan, we call it the city. We'll be like, yeah, we're going to the city for something. If anything between COVID and everything else, you kind of you stay in your own section. So, if you're a sports fan, if you kind of feeling the Nets, there's a lot of things to do around Barclays, just like how there used to be a lot of things to do around the Garden. Actually, there's more things to do around Barclays than the Garden, but that's a whole other story. So that's something to keep an eye out. But again, people hate on the Nets, people hate on the Knicks, they hate on the Giants. It's because of New York. New York's the Mecca. The small towns like Green Bay, Wisconsin, and, things like that, all they have is that one team. And if things go bad there, that's it. It's over. There's nothing else to cheer for. Dallas Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl since Bill Clinton's first term. But yet, they were still call themselves America's team. But just like the Knicks and just like the New York sports teams, they get bashed on they get that media spotlight. They get that number one spotlight because they are a number one brand. When you have a high brand, you get the hate. But unlike, just so most sports fans know, New Yorkers, we can deal with the hate. We can deal with the pressure. It's what we do. Will things turn around for the Knicks? I believe so. I believe they got the right man in the job. Worldwide West is connected. All they got to really do is follow the Nets blueprint. Develop young players. See what you got. No one's expecting you to win a championship with the next few years, but build up that roster. I still have faith in RJ Barrett. People forget that he was the number 1 ranked player when Zion was on his team in Duke. So it's just one of those things where Zion was a hype machine and he just took over the popularity. I still have faith in RJ. I think everything is going on. It's going to be him with Coach Tibbs. Coach Tibbs is a stable coach. He's going to preach to them development and defense. Whereas Fizdale was there to come coach a veteran team. That didn't happen with the Knicks because after they struck out with Irving and Durant, you kind of saw the writing on the wall with Fizz. But now when you get someone like Coach Tibbs, which it was a dream job for Tibbs, just like coming to New York was a dream job, was a dream scenario for RJ Barrett. They showed RJ on draft night when he was 8 years old with a Knicks cap on. It's kind of the same thing for Tibbs. Tibbs was there when the Knicks last got to the finals. Matter of fact, he was there last time the Knicks got to the finals. He was an assistant coach. He's always wanted this job. He coveted this job, and now he's here. I think he's going to do great things. It's going to take some time. I just ask all my New York Knicks fans to be patient. Rome wasn't built in a day, and salvaging the Mecca, it's going to take a few days. So, yeah. So, all the haters, you know what y'all can do. New York will be back. The city will be back. Sports teams will be back. And everything will be great again.